Hey, everybody. You know me? You've had my classes already? How many times now? 50?
I've been coming here since 1865.
Before audio existed. Anyway, if you don't know me, my name is Doug Gould, and I work for a company called Worship MD. That's Doug Gould, G-O-U-L-D. You can get a hold of me at Doug at Worship MD. That number again, Johnny. And today our host is PreSonus. You got a close-up of that? This is really important. They pay my mortgage. And for you in streaming land, I want to say hi to you too. If you have any questions, I won't be able to see you raise your hand, so just call into that toll-free number. Okay, so we said this at the beginning of one class today, that technology is cool, but if it doesn't solve any problems, what's the point? Technology for technology's sake is worthless. I want technology that helps me solve a problem. And in the church, there's a lot of problems that need to be solved. And some of them from a technical standpoint, and some of them from a relational standpoint. And I'm always going to err to the side of the relational to see if I can make that fix the problem before I go out and buy a piece of equipment or a piece of gear. Because a lot of times we're told that if you just buy this thing, all your problems will go away. Right? So you go out and you buy it, and guess what? There's more problems because you didn't fix the thing that needed fixing, which is trust, confidence, communication, relationship, team that is unified, that covers each other. I got your back. Sound guy in the back of the room is typically the guy that we say, hey, you back there, don't even know his name. Would you put up that slider? So relationship means everything before gear. So let's say we have good relationships. We still have problems, right? And in the churches that I visit, and my heart is called to serve, are volunteers in smaller churches. Mega churches don't need my help. They got paid staff, tech directors, worship pastors. They're paid, they're salaried, and they're experienced. They know what they're doing. The small church, which is the bulk of the churches in the United States and in the world, are staffed by volunteers. So you're an audio guy, but you've never mixed audio in your life outside of church. Or you're a musician, and you've never played in a bar band. You've never toured. You might play every fourth Sunday. So let me just ask you this question. There's an old adage, and some of you know the answer because I've said this before. How long does it take to get good at something? Somebody say it out with me. 10,000 hours. You're mixing an hour or two a week at church. 52 weeks a year if you don't get a week off. That's 100 hours. Musicians, maybe not even that much. It's hard to find audio guys. It's not as hard to find musicians maybe in some churches. So maybe you're playing in a rotating worship team. 10,000 hours equates to this if you were doing it full time, 7 years. So I've got to find a way to get volunteers up to speed so they can do some of the things that are required of them. We look at our sound guys and we think they're stupid. You don't even know how to run sound. How often do I get to practice? Does the worship team come in with me 4 nights a week so I can practice mixing and EQing and trying different mic techniques and all that stuff? No. So one of the things that PreSonus has done with their digital console line, which are called the Studio Live consoles, is they've made a conscious effort to solve the problems that the small church has. And one of the primary reasons you should consider a digital mixer, especially a PreSonus because they're the easiest to operate and the most affordable, is this thing here called presets. What are presets? Anybody a keyboard player in here? Okay. So in the 60s when I was playing a Hammond, that was my Hammond sound, and my Moog, and my Rhodes, and my Wurlitzer, and my Mellotrons, and all that stuff. And I had so many keyboards, one for every sound that I needed. And then I needed to carry all that stuff. What a pain in the neck. So then programmable keyboards came out, and guess what they had on them? Presets. On one keyboard, Hammond organ, Rhodes, Wurlitzer, Mellotron, string pads, orchestra hits, all in one. Put it under my arm, carry it to the gig. Don't need a truck anymore. That's what they've done with mixers. The Studio Live mixers have presets in them that have been created by audio engineers who have how many hours of experience? 10,000 hours of experience. And they've put those in a library right on the board. So when I go up to my mixer, take my mic with me. They want to hear me in TV land. All tangled up here. So I think they have a camera on this mixer. So here's their big boy mixer, the 24 channel, Studio Live 2442. 24 channels, 10 auxes, 4 subgroups. But even if you bought the baby one, it would have this full functionality with presets. So let's say I've got an acoustic guitar on channel 4. And let me just do this so you can hear some things change. And you'll see this on the screen too. And I'm just going to solo up the acoustic guitar right here. So you just hear that for a minute. And we're going to play it. Make sure the volume's good. Okay, that's acoustic guitar. Right now I've got no EQ on it, no compressor, no limiter, nothing. And I'm going to hit this load button that you see here. It says load. You select the channel, load, and it's going to call up this library up here with different kind of presets. And I'm going to look for something appropriate. Not flute, not trumpet. This is a guitar. So let's find one. Here's acoustic guitar. There's acoustic strumming. There's fingerstyle. Let's just try any of the three and see what happens and watch the channels change. I'm going to hit recall. Just slap the whole new setting on there. Now you have a starting point. How about a different one? You don't like that one? Once you got that, you've got a starting point. You never had a starting point before. You might get the level right, but you have no idea of how to EQ. And if you don't have an idea how to EQ, don't. Don't touch it if you don't know what you're doing. I don't want knob twiddlers. I want people who use their ears and listen. Set levels. Get a starting point. Now start to twiddle a little bit. You've got a starting point. You know what you're doing, kind of, because you can deconstruct. See what an appropriate compressor setting is. See what an appropriate EQ might be for a guitar. Environments will change, but at least this is a starting point. Now you can tweak it. Save Johnny's guitar. Save Tommy's guitar. Save Ralphie's guitar. Now they're all in your library too. And whenever they play on Sunday, you can just recall those just like you did factory presets. Is that beneficial? Absolutely. I could teach a kid who's never mixed before just to show him where the load button is in the library, and in 5 minutes he can load presets and have a usable mix as long as the levels are right. That in itself is worth the price of gold and saves you a lot of time because nobody in the church is going to be able to train you or train those coming up underneath you. It's like having a built-in professor of audio. Okay? Once you got that, you also have this, scene recall, channel recall. Scene recall allows me to save entire mixes. So you've got worship team 1 plays every other Sunday. Worship team 2 plays every third Sunday, whatever. You can recall their mixes and not have to worry about sound check. For the portable church, this is huge. Because portable churches rent spaces, as you know, every Sunday. Hotels and high schools, auditoriums, movie theaters. But where do they rehearse during the week? They don't have a facility to rehearse in, probably at the worship leader's house. So the mixer stays with him. They practice there. They store their settings. They go Sunday morning to set up. They hit recall, no sound check. Make sure the mics are working. But you can do, we'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about the recording aspects, virtual sound checks, how you can actually record your worship service and then play it back without the band even being there. EQ, compress, mix. Then the band shows up, as they normally do, a half an hour late, 10 minutes before the service. And they notice you're not freaking out anymore. You're kind of cool. Hey, how come you're not sweating, man? Services in 5 minutes. I got the new PreSonus console, and I did a virtual sound check. Done. Now maybe they'll start showing up on time because they know you can record now and they want to polish their chops a little bit. Okay, so PreSonus, besides giving you a mixer, this mixer, as you notice, without a computer, can be used just as a mixer. I can just go up, plug mics and instruments into it, put it into my PA system, and it's just like any other mixer. In fact, all the inputs and outputs are analog. There's no digital magic stuff back there. It's just typical plug and play. So if you've got an analog console you're looking to replace, this is a real easy one to do it with. Take your old board out, put this one in, and plug your snake back into it. You with me? But once you hook up a computer to the thing, it becomes a beast. I mean, the power of it is exponentially greater than it is by itself. It's cool by itself, but it's a monster when you hook up a Mac or PC to it. A monster, Tom. Godzilla kind of monster. One of the software they give you is VSL, and I'll give somebody a prize if they know what that stands for. Come on. Virtual Studio Live. Who said that? You win. You win a one-way ticket to Toronto. What VSL is this. Let me call it up here. You all see the screen okay? Okay, there's a couple things here I want to show you first. That's the overview screen. And that is giving you, can we focus that a little bit better or no? What's that showing you is the mixer as a graphic display on your laptop or your desktop. So if I take this mic off again. If I go over here, you see all these are mutes. I can take some of those mutes off. Take all these off. I got everything soloed. I can do it either way. I can do it from the mixer and it'll change on the computer, or I can do it on the computer and change it from the mixer. So let's say I'm EQing something. On the mixer itself, I've got, these LED ladders that kind of show me, for instance, on a mid EQ, for instance. If I want to change the frequency, I turn it up, I change the width of the bell curve, the peak, and I boost it or cut it. And I'm looking at it all on green lights on LEDs, which is good. You'll get used to that. But look at this. On channel 4, this is the same channel now. Let me hide this browser. You'll notice when I change things now, you'll see it change graphically here. Let me just slide this over here. Okay, so let's go back to that channel 4, and I'm going to turn on my low EQ, and I'm going to change where it's going. I'm going to dip it down a little bit, cut it, boost it, turn this one on, cut it, widen it, change the frequency. Same thing with your compressor. You can change the knee, threshold, tack, ratio, all that stuff. I've got bidirectional control of my mixer now with my laptop. There's a lot of advantages to this. That's an advantage in itself. But what the real advantage is once I've hooked that up to my computer, and I hook my computer up to a Wi-Fi network, now I've got iOS control. So now, I want to mute some things. Mute. I want to blow up that channel. Channel 4, there it is. Talk into the mic, yes. So now I have complete control over this. So this is another problem in the church, isn't it? Where do we mix from? Are you in that church in Baltimore that I was at recently? where I asked where the sound booth was, and there was a hole cut out in the ceiling, and the guy stuck his head out of a hole with one ear. And then he went back in his cubby hole to mix, kept sticking his head out. Or are you on a balcony where the speakers are facing down to the congregation, and you actually don't hear the speakers at all because you're above it? So you're running down the spiral staircase to listen. That's when the feedback happens. That's when you run back up the stairs and pull the gain down. You're in glass. You got a glass wall. That'd be perfect for recording. Terrible for mixing live sound. You need to be in the room. So here's my wife sitting back here. I'm going to go sit with her. And the pastor's going, "What are you doing with an Etch-a-Sketch?" So this is cool because now I have on the setup, here's a setup window. You can see my iOS devices are showing up in my setup screen. So I can assign this iPad to front of house, and I can use it, walk around the room, sit with my wife, do whatever I need to. Or I can give this to somebody on the stage. Is anybody still using wedges in here? Floor monitors? Do you have a monitor desk, monitor console? I can assign this iPad to all the auxes. So this iPad just became a monitor desk. And now that person can stand on the stage and go right next to the talent when they're listening to their mix and go, "Oh, you need a little bit more guitar? Drums?" Go over to the worship leader. "Want a little more vocal? Want me to EQ that for you?" They're going to go, "Man, that's the sweetest sound guy I have ever worked with in my life." So this not only is a technological cool tool to fix those problems of bad mixing positions, it's a relationship builder. I've come to their camp and I visited them and I walked amongst them and listened to what they listened to, and they love me for it. Thank you, PreSonus. We owe you a deep gratitude. All right, it gets better. The guy's on the stage with the iPad, but you said, it's still too loud in here. We want to go to in-ears. Okay. You see my iPhone hooked up there? Doug's iPhone? Any of your worship team have iPhones? How about iPod Touches? Well, this particular mixer, the big boy, will allow you to have up to 10 iPhones and iPods. So I can mix my own monitors from my iPhone. And it's got two little, I don't know if the camera can zero in on that a little bit. But you've got this, which kind of looks like the iPad. All your mix channels are here. Let me just do this first so you see it. I'm on aux 1. So you see the levels there on the mixer? I'm going to put up channel 2. That's my aux mix for aux 1. So I just turned up the upright bass. I'm going to turn up the female vocal. I'm going to turn down the acoustic guitar. But that's confusing for background vocalists. They'll do this. "Doug, can you fix my mix? I messed something up." So you run up there. So it's no use giving somebody an iPhone if they're not at least somewhat technically adept. So PreSonus thought of that too. And they have the wheel of me, they call it. Wheel of me. So you assign what channels are you. In this case, it's my guitar and my vocal. Okay? So I'm going to go back, and you see this wheel here? It's like a mod wheel on a keyboard. And this turns up me. Those are my channels. So I can turn me up as much as I want without doing anything else. That's the only thing I have to worry about is me. Look what happens when me gets all the way to the top and you still need more me. The band comes down. That is brilliant. Genius. The wheel of me. Can you all say that with me? Wheel of me. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Go back to presets for a minute. So we have this. I'll use the mic, don't worry. Presets on here are easy to do. You scroll through them and you choose one. That could be for a channel, could be for a scene, could be for an effect setting, could be a graphic equalizer setting. But if you're doing fast changes, it might be hard to like scroll through and find it and preset it. So on the software, this is a big advantage on the software. They allow you to do your scene changes as on an iTunes list. So for instance, I want to do Greg Russell. And I slide that over to the mixer, the whole mixer just changed. So if you're doing a drama or skit and you got these fast scene changes, you just grab them, put them, boom, 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 and they just change. Or you can do things like this. Let's say you just want some fat channel scene changes, effects. I don't have anything on the disc right now. But if I had something loaded here, I would take it over and I would just put it on a part. Put the overview back on. I would just put it on a part of whatever I wanted to. So I could do a whole channel and it would change. Or I could just put it on the part that I want. For instance, I just want the EQ like that. So wherever you apply that preset, it'll just do that part of the preset, the compressor. Or adjust the gate. So you do whole mixer, channels, parts of channels, macro to micro. Graphic EQ settings are in there too. So if this board is being moved around from place to place, you could have a graphic EQ for the youth room, the sanctuary, the chapel, wherever. And you just apply it. And now that's the EQ that you had last time you were in that room. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So, we covered that, right? Any questions on wireless mixing? Everybody get it? Okay. I'll clean up the mess later, I promise. We had a whole class on this morning, so I don't know how many of you were in the recording class. How many? A few of you. That's another problem with the church. We don't know how to record our services, or we don't. Or if we do, they sound so bad we don't even want to listen to them. So a lot of you are recording board mixes to a CD or to a cassette. And we told why board mixes don't sound very good. Why is that? Because they mimic what your fader positions are doing. So if you're in a small church, you got a loud bass guitar. Is he going to be up in the PA? No, he's going to be off. Your drummer plays so loud you don't even have mics on him. So he's not in the mix. So you got a lot of vocals. They need reinforcement. The guitar player is too loud, so his fader is probably pretty down low. And anything that needs reinforcement is going to be loud. And anything that's in the room that's loud already is not going to be reinforced. So when you play back your recording, guess what it sounds like? Thin and vocal heavy. So then you get the idea that you're going to go and record something. You buy a Mac or a PC, and then you get so confused with how it is patched that you just throw it in a corner and forget about it. I can't figure out how to get that channel into that track. I'm pulling my hair out. I'm done. So PreSonus thought of that too. And in the recording thing, they have made it the simplest, easiest thing in the world to do. 2 buttons. If you got your live band coming in this, and you've got a Mac or PC hooked up with FireWire, which you should anyway just for the wireless mixing thing, go ahead and launch one of the recording software they have that comes with it called Capture. Capture. I have a captive audience talking about Capture. They did lock the doors. Nobody can get out. Capture is a software, one of the 3 softwares. VSL is one, Capture is another one, and there's another recording software we'll talk about in a minute. Capture is the one that works with the mixers exclusively. This software does not work with anything else. So if you want to mix, playback, track, you have to have it hooked up to the mixer. But the beauty of that is that it's auto-configured. The software sees what mixer you have hooked up to it. PreSonus makes 3 mixers. The 1602, which is a 16-channel, no subgroups, 4 auxes, very affordable, $12.99. So it would see that, oh, I have 16 tracks, but 12 mono tracks or 8 mono and 4 stereo, something along that line. Then the next one up is a 1642. And it would say, oh, you have a 1642. You have 16 tracks to record on. If you hook up 2 16s together, which you can slave them together, it'll say, oh, you have 2 16s slaved. We see 32 tracks. If you have a 24, oh, I see 24 tracks. It knows what mixer, what configuration you have. And anything coming into any of the channels goes specifically to its own track with the same number. So anything coming in channel 1 gets recorded on track 1. Channel 2, track 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're recording this is all the levels are set with the trim, the gain stage up on the top. A lot of times when you're doing recording, you have 2 separate mixers, or you have somebody getting in your way trying to interfere with what you're doing. This, once you set the gain, it's right for the house. It's not distorted. It's not too soft. It's going to be right for the recording. It just goes in, touches it, comes back out. It's not affected by its EQ or anything like that. So set that right, and it's going to be set right for your recording. Then all you do is this. The worship band starts to play. You arm all the tracks, and you hit the red circle, and you're recording the whole service. It's in the background. I don't have to worry about it. And when you can put markers in as it's going. End of song 1, beginning of song 2, beginning of the sermon. This does not have a lot of editing on it. I can cut, copy, paste. I can slice some things. I can't really edit. The only effects I have are the effects that are on the board, basically. Are you with me so far? But here's the beautiful thing. We talked about why do we record this morning? Some people record the sermons. They put them on their website, podcast, outreach, shut-ins. We don't do the music as often because we don't have the facility to record like that, and we're not even doing original music, so we don't produce. But how about this for the most important reason? To make the team sound better. How about we record the rehearsals and the services, and then as a team, listen back to them so we can say, man, we really didn't do a good job this week. Or, wow, that sounded great. We're on the right track. Baseball, basketball, soccer teams film themselves all the time so they can get better. They watch game film. We play every Sunday and don't even listen to what we're doing. I mean, it's fodder for getting together, talking to the sound guy, and realizing that it's not the sound guy's fault that we sound this way. You guys stink. Have you ever listened to a recording of yourself? Well, listen. It's not my fault that you sound like that. Maybe it is your fault. That would show up too, especially if you use some room mics to show what's happening in the room. So here's a service I did not long ago. Just a little, 4-piece band. They had an upright bass, djembe, acoustic guitar, female vocal, male vocal. And I just recorded them while they were playing. Mixers have mic inputs and line inputs. This has firewire inputs. The firewire inputs are allowing me to take the tracks right back off the computer into the same channels they were when they were playing live. So if this mixer's in your sanctuary, you got your worship day and they play on Sunday, you record them, they leave, you come back Tuesday night, you fire the tracks back up, you're in the same sanctuary, they're in the same channels as they were on Sunday morning, and you just practice mixing. They don't have to be there. You want to just work on the kick drum mix? Pump the kick drum up, solo it up, try different EQs, try different compressors. You want to get that guitar sounding a little brighter? Just play it virtually back. Walk around the room with your iPad. Go up to the stage, and while that track is playing through the acoustic guitar player's monitor, you can EQ his monitor so his acoustic guitar sounds right. You'll never be able to do that with an analog board. Right? Get the idea? Then they give you this recording software, Studio One. How are we doing on time, anyway? 3 minutes left? 30 minutes? Wow. Cool. The other software they give you is this one. This is Studio One. This program that you get with the mixer is called Studio One Artist. It's about $200. I think they might have just reduced the price to $100. As a matter of fact, if anyone wants to play with Studio One before they actually buy a mixer, they used to have a demo 30-day trial of Studio One Artist. They don't do that anymore. They have a new Studio One free. It's a lighter version of Artist, has plugins, has loops, has effects. It's unlimited track count. You go to presonus.com, it's yours for nothing. There's no time limit on it. It was created by the guy who created Nuendo for Steinberg. If he was with Nuendo now, this would be Nuendo now, but it blows away Nuendo. And why does it blow away Nuendo? Because again, most of the people are volunteers in our church. We don't get computer software. So everything on this is drag and drop. And everything is auto-configured. Some people actually use this software instead of Capture to record their services because it has a lot more stuff. And I can overdub, and I don't need the mixer to edit. I can record it on Studio One, take it home on my laptop, and mix it at home. And then play it back through the mixer when I get to church, if you wanted to do that. How does it auto-configure? Well, let's say you want to create a song. So go up to here, create a song. Sorry. And you want to, let's say you're going to use it with your Studio Live console. You can see here they have all the interfaces that they make. And then there's a Studio Live 24 too. So I hit that, and I hit OK. And now what it's going to do is going to call up 24 tracks completely configured for this mixer. I want to show you a very powerful thing on this. I had a guitar player come into a worship session a few weeks ago, and he was supposed to bring a guitar. He thought we had a guitar amp there. We didn't. I showed you this in the earlier class, so bear with me. And I said, I don't have a guitar amp here. You're the guitar player. Where's your guitar? I didn't think. I thought maybe you'd have one. He says, well, fortunately, we have something that can help you. So he's coming into channel 7 right here. And I plug his guitar directly into this channel. And I go over here, and you'll notice I have some effects on the bottom here. See where my mouse is? Over here is effects. And you'll see, like, I've got tons of different effects that I can put on various instruments, vocals, whatever. Way more than the PreSonus console has built in. Keep in mind, this comes free with your mixer. So I want to put some guitar stuff on him. So let's go through the guitar. These are effects chains up here. And you can see there's effects chains for drums, for guitar. Let's choose a guitar. Let's go down here to sort O, negative. And I have this one called Ampire. And I just drag it to the channel that he's on in the mixer. And now I've got guitar effects. And I'm not a guitar player, so I have him play, and I'm just changing presets, because these have presets too. So does he want a crunch British guitar, or does he want like a drive boutique, drive British, crunch American? How about that? And he has 412 American cabinet. How about a 112 British cabinet? And I don't even know if that's sounding good, so I start looking at presets. Oh, he wants a creamy lead. And he's just playing, and I'm just going through presets. He goes, stop. What is that? I love that. I got to like three different ones. I had like 300 more to go through. That's it. What is that thing? That's just the software that comes with the mixer. App for your iPad is a smart app, and it's going to be a spectrograph. What is a spectrograph? Let me show you here on this thing again. Let's go over to my GEQ settings. See, everybody know what a graphic equalizer is? Okay, so if you got good ears, you can pretty much EQ a room. But I've been in some churches where I'm listening with my wife, I'm visiting a church, and I hear, and I tell my wife, is he going to get that? And it goes on, and I just finally leave and go fix it. I can't handle it, man. Who are you? Cape Crusader. What a spectrograph will do is it'll display colors behind all those bands on the graphic. Colors like you see in this brochure here. Kind of like a rainbow. It'll show you where the frequencies are cold and where they're really hot. And where they get really hot, they get bright white, solid white. So if you can't hear, you can at least look at your spectrograph and say, I'm turning white. You might want to turn me down before it goes into full-blown feedback. So now we can even have visual guys running sound because we can at least see it. Free. Okay, let's talk about the next thing that they're cool for. Churches buy something. They're in a small hotel right now. They got 70 people meeting with them. Next year, they're in the ballroom. They got 350 people. We got more people on the worship team. That means we have to trade in our 16-channel mixer and get a 32-channel. No, they're scalable. Scalable. I can connect mixers together to get more channels, and they act as one. I can't do it with the baby one. That won't cascade. But I can do it with the 16.4.2. I can have up to 4 of them linked together. Caveat, after you go past 2, you lose your recording capability. That's a function of the bandwidth of FireWire. So I can have two 16.42s linked together, 32 live inputs, 32 recording inputs. If I want to go past that, I can get more live inputs, but I don't have the recording capability. Are you with me? So I can have the 64 inputs. Those are...
You can record all four. You have to have two sets of recorders.
On all four?
Yeah.
Oh, the way that you're configuring it, yeah, okay. But the way they're talking about it, you kind of lose that capability. And capture won't show it up either, yeah. Then you have the 24, which you can link two of those together for 48 channels, but you lose your recording after one. So I can grow with my mixer. Or I can have a campus where I have one in the youth room, one over here, one over in the rehearsal area, and one in the sanctuary. And then we do a big event. Stephen Curtis Chapman's coming to our church. We need a lot of inputs. Youth room, sanctuary, chapel, put them all together. There's your big console for the show. Connect them all together for big events, break them all up for smaller events. Perfect for the portable church. I just did a training for National Community Church in Washington, D.C. It's one of the biggest churches in Washington. They don't even own a property. They meet in 7 Regal movie theaters on the Metro. They own one thing. They own a coffee house, which they run as a secular coffee house all week. And Mark Batterson speaks from there on Saturday night, and they record his sermon onto 7 Mac Minis. And the staff from the 7 different Regal movie theaters pick them up Saturday night, and they take them to the movie theaters, and they play that back. Each one has their own worship team and their own tech team. The stuff is stored in the movie theaters. Here's the problem. None of the mixers are the same, and they don't have any place to practice. So I go down there I went down there last quarter. They want me to come back every quarter and train their guys. I said, guys, just buy the same mixer, set them up in the coffee house on a Saturday afternoon, and have your guys just all practice with the system that's in the coffee house. Then you break them all up and take them with your Mac Minis to the theaters. They're easy to transport. Now you're all learning the same consistent mixer. It's affordable, and for bigger events, you can pull them together. So it's cheaper than having me come every quarter. Buy yourself a few mixers. Our church has a different kind of mixer for front of house. And they were thinking about buying some new personal monitor mixers, expanding that so we can get more in-ear stuff. So rather than go and buy all these personal monitor mixing systems, I said, why don't we just buy a PreSonus console and use that as a monitor desk? These have built-in splitters in them. You know what a splitter costs? A true splitter, where you've got a mic input, line input going to 2 different destinations. They can cost a lot of money if you get a lot of channels made out of copper, long distances. So we put this on the stage. We run our mics and lines into this, and then out of the splitter goes to our front of house desk. We're now using iPods and iPhones for our mixers with headphone amps. Something along this line. This is a PreSonus HP4 headphone amp. $150. iPod Touch, $100. Mix goes right into the back of this. I'm adjusting the mix with my Q mix. Done. It's cheaper than a wedge. Way cheaper than some competing personal monitor systems. And I still have the iPad control. So if I don't want to be at my monitor desk, I can float around the stage with my iPad and do all the auxes that way. So it's up to you. Cheap. Affordable is a better word, probably. Sorry, PreSonus, they're not cheap. They're affordable. There's nothing, take my word for it, there's nothing in this price point that touches it. Especially for Sonics. The preamps that they use in these things are X-Max preamps. They're the same preamps that Lincoln Brewster's used on his last 3 records, which were in their Fire Studio interfaces. They put the same preamps in their mixers. A lot of headroom. 0 distortion. A lot of gain. their preamps actually sound better than our front of house desk, which costs 3 times as much money. They don't have flying faders. They don't move. So if you're walking around the room, mixing, you probably want to leave it in fader locate mode on your mixer. Because when you're mixing this, you see the fader change up there? You're making some changes as you're walking around the room. And if you leave it in this position of fader locate, it'll show you the position of how the fader was changed from here. And then how you change that to the position it is on this. It's like a guitar tuner. I don't know if you can see this. You just turn it up until it's centered. And that's the change you just made from here. They saved about $1,500 to $2,000 per mixer by not putting motorized faders on it. Flying faders are fun to look at for a while. Very rarely used in music production. Theatrical stuff, yeah, quite a lot. Music, I hope your hands are on the console, your head is up, and you're moving things like you need to be moving things. Don't stand back there and hit buttons. It's quick change things are not usually used in music production like that. Not at our level anyway. So you pay a lot of money for that. And it doesn't show up here. In fact, the front of house console that we have is a digital console. It costs $9,000. I can only have one iPad on it. When you're setting up the iOS devices on our setup here. Sorry, I'll use the microphone. I can set up permissions here. So here's Doug Gould's iPhone, right? What aux mix is he going to get? There's your choices. All right, Doug, you're on aux 2. I can even name those so it shows up on my iPhone, Doug, Johnny. But now you can't affect anybody else's mix. You have permission for yours. I can give you only wheel of me, too, if I want to. So wheel only. If you turn it, it won't do the channels. It'll just be the wheel all the time. It has security on it, so if the ladies' auxiliary is using the mixer on Monday for their Bible study, you can leave them faders to move, but lock out the fat channel or lock out the whole board. Password. So it has a lot of the same features of some more expensive consoles, but doesn't cost nearly as much. I think I gave you the prices. The little one is $1,299. The middle one is $2,000. The most expensive one, this one, is $3,299. I just don't know what to say anymore. I'm kind of... Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the question is there anything, I mean, I've heard, like I told you before, our church just purchased this. One question I have is there any other outboard gear that you would add to that? Because I know I've heard that it replaces a lot of stuff.
In a word, no. I wouldn't need to. Unlike an analog mixer, which doesn't have compressor limiters, gates, expanders, even processors or EQs built in, on everything that has a blue light, channels, subgroups, the mains, 10 auxes, even the effects processor, the reverb and delay unit that are built in, they can all have, and they all do have, compressor limiter gate expander on them. That's 24 for channels, 4 more for subgroups, that's 28. 10 auxes, that's 38. 2 effects processors, that's 40. And 2 for the mains. 42 compressor limiter gate expanders. The cheapest compressor limiters I know of are like Behringer's for $100. That's $4,200. How much is a mixer? $3,299. What about the software? What about the wireless stuff? At that point, not to be rude or anything, but you would have to be a complete idiot to buy an analog board anymore. If you have one, use it. I'm not telling you to get rid of it. I'm just saying, if you're looking at new consoles, you have no business looking at analog boards. This board is as analog as you're going to get, but gives you all the power of digital. Everything is analog on it. It's all on the surface. Everything is right there to touch and change. I don't have to go into nested menus, steps, levels, fader layers, any of that. It's all right here. More questions?
You said it has 10 oxes plus 2.
Right. So you have 10 auxes, which are pre-fade or post-fade. And then you have 2 effects processors built in, which give you reverb and delay. That's not counting what you'd want to use if you had Studio One hooked up to it and using it along that line. They have convolution reverbs, multi-band compressors, stuff that's even beyond what's in the mixer. The 2 effects processors are pretty much time-based effects, so they don't do guitar distortions or that kind of stuff. And again, you can even EQ and process those. So if your reverb is too dark, you put it through the fat channel and use the high-pass filter, get rid of the rumble. It also has 8 graphic equalizers in it. So I can put 2 on the mains. I have 8 more to divide amongst the 10 auxes. But the auxes even have 4-band full parametric EQ on them. So do you guys know how to ring out monitors? Who doesn't? Ring out a monitor so it doesn't feedback. Most churches that I go into, they have a floor monitor with an amplifier feeding it. Coming right out of the mixer, they're going into an amp, into a monitor. There's no EQ. And they're going, why is this feeding back? Because you don't have any EQ on it. Simple way to EQ a monitor, take a mic, hold it in front of the monitor. You don't have to sing into it. Turn that monitor up until it starts to ring. You need a graphic on your monitor to do this. Something I just showed you with all those sliders on it. And you're going to find out which of those sliders relates to that tone you're hearing. There it is. Took you 15 minutes to find it, but that's okay. Want to get yourself used to finding feedback frequencies? You can download this thing called Simple Feedback Trainer. It's Google search, Simple Feedback Trainer. It's a game. Puts a desktop graphic on your computer desktop. 15 sliders, got a start button. It's got a little window with how many guesses you have made and a stopwatch. Have your headphones or speakers hooked up. You hit start. 15 guesses. There's only 15 sliders, guys. You finally found it, so it shows you the time and how many guesses. But it doesn't wait when you find the right one. It goes right to the next one. You do that for 6 months, guys, and you'll be really good at finding feedback. And getting back to the monitors, you find that first tone, then have them crank the level up again after you found it. You're going to get a different tone, different harmonic. All right? Do that 3 or 4 times, and now whenever you push that monitor level up, you've already pushed it as far as it can go with feeding back. You found those frequencies that feed back. It's not going to feed back now. Unless little Susie does a special and she does this. That might feed back. But having that many graphics and parametrics on your auxes, if you're using them for wedges, is phenomenal. I can stand in front of the wedge with my iPad and have them ring it up, and I can just use my parametrics, zero that Q down, and just surgically remove those particular frequencies without even using a graphic. It's killer. Questions? 5 minutes? Well, they did with the first one.
Yeah, they did. Are they going to be adding more to that?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
Can you repeat the question in the mic so I'm not hearing?
I can't hear you.
Repeat the question.
Oh, repeat the question. Are they going to be adding more graphics to future generations of PreSonus Studio Live mixers? I think that's a paraphrase of what you just asked me. I don't know. The first one that they ever made was a 1642 and had 2 graphics in it. This just shows you another cool thing that PreSonus does. In 2 years, that thing has gained so many features from when it first came out. It wasn't supposed to do half of this stuff. It didn't have the iOS applications. It had 2 graphics. It has 8 now with a firmware upgrade. So they just keep getting better. The Smart app is coming out. So when you ask me something like that, I don't know is the real answer. They might. They might be coming out with more effects that you can add, presets. They're doing social exchanges now on the PreSonus website with Studio One. So people who have created loops, it's kind of like a loop Facebook page. They share stuff. They share presets for their Studio Live mixers. So you can actually download those and try them on your drums or your guitar, see how they work. So it's pretty fun. Now, I want to go one step further with the Studio One thing. You get artists in the box with the mixer. There are actually 2 upgrade paths to the next 2 levels up. One is called producer and one's called professional. And I think it's like I'm not sure the price, maybe $200 to upgrade to professional or $300, I'm not quite sure. And what that gives you, full mastering capability. The coolest thing on Studio One 2 Pro is this function called Melodyne. It's a pitch correction tool, for lack of a better description. So how many of us have out-of-tune singers in our church? But she's the pastor's wife, right? So in my Q mix, I can just pull her down. But when I'm running in front of house, the pastor might say, I didn't notice my wife in the mix. Oh, no, I'm sure I had her, Pastor. I'm sure I had her up there. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody hit that mute button. I don't know how that happened.
Can you do that stuff in real time?
Melodyne does, you take a section of the song, and what it does is it puts it into Melodyne and analyzes it. It's not real time, no. So you're not going to get like T-Pain and Cher effects from it, where, who needs that? But Melodyne is probably the best one because there's really no artifacts. There's other cool things you can do with it too. This track I played you hear with the upright bass had kind of a twangy pickup on it. 2 minutes, I'll finish. I promise. I'll be done. And Tom Brooks can come on, who's awesome. Even if you're not a keyboard player, you should stay for his stream. He's the best. I'm like a wimp compared to him. Anyway, Melodyne also does things like converts pitch to MIDI. So this lousy upright bass sound that I had, I took it and I put it in Melodyne and converted that data to MIDI data. And then I started plugging different bass sounds onto it. He comes into the thing, he goes, well, that's not my bass. I go, well, it's you playing, but it's not your sound. He says, why not? I said, your sound was awful. You should get a better mic for that upright or get a better pickup. After you listen to it a few times, he agreed. It did sound better in the track. This one guy demonstrated, he took his iPhone, sang a little riff into it, uploaded it to SoundCloud, which is part of Professional, which is this cloud virtual place where you store your data. And he came down, uploaded it to Studio One, converted it in Melodyne to MIDI data, and turned it into a bass line. And he started with singing into his iPhone. And I think that's all we have time for today, folks. So tune in next week. I'm sorry. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks.